If you own a home service or contracting business of any size, this video will 100% make you more money. Not more revenue, the number that actually matters for actual business owners, and that's profit. And so most of the time, what I have seen, myself included, is that business owners have never sat down and done the most basic math because they're checking revenue all day long and they should be checking profit. So in this video, I'm gonna go over the exact structure on why pricing matters and why probably 90% of you need to raise your prices, but you're so afraid to do it that you don't know how. And so I'm gonna walk you through why you need to raise them and then also walk you through how you need to raise them and measure them so you're not terrified. So let's begin. As we start, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Steve Hunsaker. I'm the owner of the Home Service Accelerator. We have had 450 to 500 home service businesses come through our program where we teach all of these home service businesses how to run their own advertising, run their own Facebook ads, set up their automations in the back end of their system, fix their branding, all of that jazz. And there's also a massive community component on the back end. I've also owned 3 separate home service brands, and I currently own 2 on the side of Home Service Accelerator. I have operators and systems and setups in all of those businesses. My main one does about $400,000 a month in peak season. It's a seasonal lighting business, and then I also have a permanent lighting business in the background. And then I also used to own a junk removal company as well. So I'm not just a marketing guy, I actively own home service businesses while I'm making these videos. So let's begin. What happens for most businesses is we talk about pricing. And when we talk about pricing, most people go, oh yeah, no, my market can only command this much. And all they do is they just go off of their gut, they go off of their instinct, whatever else, and they just don't like to hear the word no very often. And so they keep lowering their prices to stay at about 20 to 30% margins and hope that that's just how things go. But the reality of it is, if you don't have a ton of employees, you should not be at 20 or 30% net margins. You should be much higher if you do not have employees, because employees and every cost associated with having employees gets expensive. And so as you scale, those costs will go up, but most of the time you haven't done the basic math on pricing. So let's run through it. Why you probably need to raise your prices. The first thing, let's take a really easy example that I made. We are talking about a $1,000 job. And so what I've done is I've broken down the most kindergarten basic expenses for a $1,000 job. So easy math, these might be different for your business. It doesn't matter. Just go over the process the same. Let's just round numbers are much easier for everybody, regardless of trade, to understand what I'm talking about. So starting here, let's say you have an average ticket or an average job size of $1,000. So every time a customer swipes their credit card for you, submits whatever on job or quote, gets approved, whatever else, it averages out to $1,000. My business is much higher than that, but for easy math, let's say it's $1,000. Now, let's say you're spending 15% of your sales on marketing. Pretty normal budget for a business that's trying to grow. Some businesses go even higher. So 15% of my average ticket size would be $150. And then let's say you have a 20% labor cost. So for you to actually finish this job, it's going to be about 20% labor. So let's call it $200 worth of labor. And then on top of that, your product cost, if you have cost of fulfillment, anything like that, that's built into your quotes, $150 product cost, and then $200 of fixed costs. Fixed costs being like, it doesn't matter how many jobs you sell, these costs go out to your business. So your jobber subscription, your Snipey Lead subscription, your whatever agencies you're paying, your fixed salaries for your office staff, all that jazz. Let's just say it's 20%, $200 of that $1,000 is gone. Guys, these are rough estimates. Your numbers are going to be a little different, but the process is the same when I'm doing the math. So you do a $1,000 job, you cross out all of these things, and then you're left with $300 profit on that job, or 30%. So this is the issue that most people have. And now I'm going to do an exercise where I change the price. And now the thing you guys are going to bring up is, but the close rate's going to go down. I will get there. I will get there. So let's see what happens when we raise the price of this $1,000 average ticket. Let's just say we raise the price across the board and we get our average ticket to $1,300. So if we get our average ticket to $1,300, then these expenses go from $300 profit to $600 profit on this job, right? But your close rate is going to go down, right? The higher you price yourself, your close rate is going to go down. But what you have to understand is the good businesses don't care about revenue nearly as much as they care about profit, because the profit is how you put more money back into the machine and get it even bigger. Because if you're operating at, 10, 15, 20% margins, after you pay yourself and everything else, you have so little money to reinvest back into the business that it gets terrifying. And so all we did was raise the price by $300. Now our profit doubled. Think about that for a second. You raised your revenue by $300, but in this hypothetical scenario, your marketing costs stayed the same, right? Your marketing costs can stay the same when you do this exercise. Eventually, you can raise your marketing, whatever. If your average ticket's higher, your sales are going to be higher. If you stick at 15%, you can actually raise your marketing dollars as well. But for this scenario, we're going to keep everything fixed so the math becomes really simple. So you're still spending $150 on marketing now. Your job didn't change. This is the most important part. The job does not change when you raise prices. And so shout out to Alex Hormozy. There is no greater lever you can pull in your business to have a higher impact on the money you take home than simply just raising your prices. It's a bigger lever with less effort to pull than anything else. Better than fixing your sales team. A better and more high leverage thing to do than fixing your ads. Better and more high leverage thing to do than doing all this other stuff. The easiest thing you can do is just raise your prices. Again, bear with me. We'll keep going. $200 in labor are gone. But the labor's the same because the job is the same job as it was at $1,000. You've just raised your prices a little bit to $1,300. And your product cost is $150. That is also staying the same because the job is the same. You just raised your prices. And then your fixed costs also stay the same because you didn't add any operational lag to your business by raising your baseline prices. The only thing you added is how much money you collect. And so a $300 profit job turns into a $600. You double your profit by raising your price. You don't double the revenue number, you double the profit. And that's the number that matters. And this is the part that most people get wrong because they chase revenue and not profit. And now here's how the math actually breaks down and makes sense. Let me go to my next slide because I know you guys are like, but if I raise my prices by 30%, I'm not going to sell as much. Yes. And that is the point. So, my close rate, Steve, how am I going to do that? No one's going to say yes. But honestly, the majority of you are probably having too many people say yes, and you're left with working really hard each month, like extremely hard each month, and not being left with very much profit because you're afraid to hear the word no. And so here's the math. Let's say this column is the $1,000 average ticket, and this column is the $1,300 average ticket. And now again, we're talking about profit here. We're not talking about revenue because revenue is the vanity number and profit is the sanity number. So let's go through a little, let's model it out a little bit. So let's say you're charging a $1,000 average ticket. You gave out 10 quotes. You closed 6 out of that 10. Therefore, you have a 60% close rate, right? So if you close 6 out of 10 and your average ticket's $1,000, you made $6,000 in revenue. Pretty easy math. Over here, this is your new pricing model. You charge $1,300. You gave out 10 quotes. Your close rate fell substantially. Your close rate fell from 60% to 40%. That is a substantial drop off in close rate. You guys would be pooping your pants if you went from closing 3 out of 5 jobs to now only closing 2 out of 5 quotes you do. But the difference is when you focus on profit, you can scale everything else a lot cleaner. So this one, you raise your price to $1,300. You gave out 10 quotes, you closed 4. Your close rate fell drastically. A lot more people are telling you no, a lot more people are mad at you and saying your pricing's ridiculous, everything else. So in this model, you close 6 at a $1,000 average ticket, you get $6,000 revenue. On this one, you close 4 at a $1,300 ticket, that is a $5,200 revenue operation, right? This business is doing more in sales. This business looks like a better business from a revenue standpoint. This business looks like a worse business from a revenue standpoint. But here's where the math gets good, and this is where very few people do the math. Your expenses that we just talked about stay the same on every job. And so on this job, you did 6 jobs at $1,000. So your expenses are now $700 times 6, $4,200 of cost to fulfill on this $6,000 of revenue. So out the door, you just spent $4,200 to make $1,800. Okay? So you made $1,800 profit in this scenario. You did 6 jobs. In this scenario, you closed less jobs. Your close rate's worse. That sucks. That doesn't feel good to hear the word no. But your costs, because you raised your prices, were $2,800 to fulfill on $5,200. So $5,200 in revenue minus $2,800 to fulfill leaves you with $2,400 profit. And so this is what people do not understand about focusing on profit and not revenue. You did less work and you took less risk in this scenario. You're working with less homeowners. And so what happens when you work with less homeowners is the customer experience is substantially better because you're not trying to squeeze all of these jobs into the calendar every day and rushing to the next one and your guys are making mistakes because you have to do so much revenue to just make enough profit to leave the doors open. And so what happens is you take on more risk in this scenario, you do more work, and then your customers have a worse experience. And the worst part about that model is you actually make less money. And so in this scenario, what happens is the guy on the right looks less busy because he's closing less. And so if you look at my business, for example, we probably have a worse close rate than 90% of our competition locally. Like truly. Like my competition in the lighting business brags about getting booked out in October. They brag about it. Like they're going on social media saying, we can't take on any more business. We're fully booked at the end of October. But they are legitimately half my price, sometimes even less. And so what happens in my scenario is we close at a lower rate than them. But when we do close jobs, they are home runs. Most Christmas light businesses or temporary lighting businesses of any kind have somewhere between like $1,200 to $1,800, $2,000 average tickets. Ours last year was $3,800. Because I have so much more profit to take off of the top when I do my jobs, I can pay leadership positions more. I can throw more dollars into advertising just strictly off the fact that my average ticket is so much higher. I can gift my clients at a much better rate so we retain them better. We do stuff like all of our customers get a branded ornament from us every year. Those ornaments are not cheap. I'm spending $2,000, $3,000 on some freaking branded ornaments. It's not cheap. But the difference is we have so much profit, we expand back into the business and invest back into the business because we have profit left over. And then our end user experience gets so much better. And so my guys get paid more, so I attract top talent. My business does better, and so I can buy better product. We can take more time on jobs because we have more built in and we're not like struggling to make ends meet on every single job. And so the difference is what happens when you do this scenario is you are doing more work in this scenario for less money. And so if you're watching this video and you have a home service business or a contracting business of any kind, and you're like, okay, Steve, that's great. I'm working 40, 50 hours a week right now. Like you're working tooth and nail as either an owner operator, maybe you have some employees, but you're working just incredibly hard every single week and you're not stacking cash in the business profitably and then like being able to make bigger moves, then I really challenge you to like look at the close rate. And so look at the close rate and then raise your prices. But the way you can raise prices without completely losing your ass is you don't just jump by 30% overnight. The easiest way that you guys can do it, and I'm just gonna break it down really simply. The challenge I want you guys to do, and I promise you, you will never go to zero. You will never go to zero by doing this, I promise. So what you're gonna do, regardless of your trade, for the next 25 to 30 quotes, all I want you to do is, so let's just say 25 for easy math. For 25 next quotes, I want you to build your quotes exactly like you build them right now, exactly the same. And then I want you to raise your prices by 5%. So tack on 5% right at the end of the quote. Find a place to put it in, 5% margin increase at the end of the quote. Measure your close rate for the next 25 quotes. I all but guarantee you your close rate will not be impacted at all. And so you're going to raise by 5%. And then you're going to do it again. 25 more quotes. Raise by 5% again. So now you're up 10%, a little bit more, because when you raise by 5% again on the baseline, it'll be a little bit higher because this increased number will be higher. So you get it. But easy math, let's just call it 10%. So now your pricing has increased by 10%. But if your pricing increases by 10%, it means your profit margin increases by a lot more than 10%. That's the key, because most of your costs will stay the same, and so your profit will increase. And even if your revenue starts to go down a little bit, the only number that matters is profit. And so like I tell this story, and I made a tweet about this the other day. I talked to a guy when I first started Home Service Accelerator a long time ago, and he was doing like gutter cleaning, and he was running like Groupons and like just like Thumbtack and just every like worst thing you could do in the book to run a gutter cleaning business he was doing. And what he was doing is he was like bragging about his close rate, like no one ever says no. But the reason no one was saying no is he was getting on roofs and cleaning gutters for 60 bucks. But he was doing like 6 or 7 of those a day. And so like he thought he was making a lot of money, right? Because it's like, oh, no one says no. We're booked out 3 weeks in advance. But the issue is like if he's doing $60 a job and he's doing 7 of those a day, he was making $420 a day. But he was getting on 6 or 7 roofs a day, which is extremely dangerous for very little money. He tried to hire and he couldn't hire effectively because that model only worked when he was doing the fulfillment himself. The second he tried to hire somebody, if you hire a $20 an hour employee and you do it by the books, that's a $20 an hour employee plus all of your taxes, insurance, workman's comp, all of that. That employee starts costing you like $30 to $33, $34, right? And so now if he was doing a $60 gutter clean, by the time the truck got gassed up, he got to the house, his employees started doing it, more than half of his profit was gone just by hiring somebody. And so that model didn't scale. And so what he was doing was he was putting himself at risk, he was putting his family at risk, and he was putting his entire business at risk because he wasn't charging enough to justify hiring employees. So if you want to be an owner op for the rest of your life, that's fantastic, but you're one injury away from losing your income, right? You're one correction away of a ladder from your family not eating. And so what we want to do is like when you talk to these massive businesses, so like I've had the privilege of with the podcast and everything else, like talking to guys who sold home service brands for 9 figures. I had a chance to talk to some of the biggest home service brands in the world. The interesting thing that I see is as the businesses get bigger and they start getting in that 8, 9 figure world, all they talk about is profit. When the businesses are smaller, when it's the people on social media and the people that are like gurufying things for you, those are the people that talk about revenue. And there's something really interesting about that because when you have a war chest in your business of a lot of cash, you can take bigger swings and bigger risks. But if you take the guy that I just talked about in that scenario where he was, $420 a day, like that gutter cleaner in that scenario was paying Groupon like $25 for each one of those jobs or something like that. Like that scenario does not pencil at all. It looked like he was doing a lot of sales because he was making 400 something dollars a day, 5 days a week, so $2,000 in revenue a day, but he wasn't making any profit. The profit was so slim that he's stuck. He's trapped in this business where he's not making any money, but he's so busy. This even happened with me like 3, 4 years ago. I'd be doing junk removal 5, 6 days a week. I'd get out there and start doing work at like 7, 8 a.m. and I'd get done at 4 p.m. And we would do like, $5,000, $6,000 revenue in a week. And I'd feel that and I'd feel fantastic. But my expenses were like 4,000, 4,500. So I was like, dude, I'd be better off working a 9 to 5. I was making $6,000 a month, which is fine, but that's not going to be fine when I start adding in employees. The trap that a lot of home service entrepreneurs go through, from what I've seen, and trust me, I've seen a lot of them, Home Service Accelerator has brought like 460, 470 people through Home Service Accelerator in the last year and a few months. So I've got a chance to get my hands in a lot of different home service brands. The thing that I see newer businesses absolutely get pummeled by, and I'm saying this with love, is you guys go, and I did this, so I can say this confidently. Oh, I'm going to be a little bit cheaper because I'm doing every job. I'm going to build a lot of goodwill in the market, and then I'm going to raise my prices when I hire guys. You are in for an extremely rude awakening. Because the other thing that doesn't get talked about that much is when you're the cheap guy, you build a book of business of nothing but cheap customers. And so all that's going to happen, I want this to just really stick on the screen. Cheap biz, cheap customers. When you try to expand and you have any business with referrals or repeat business or anything like that, and you are going in cheap right now because you're an owner op or you have maybe 1 or 2 employees, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna raise prices down the road. You are building a book of business of terribly cheap customers. And when you build a book of business of terribly cheap customers, the second you try to raise rates or they refer you to their friends or whatever else, you're in neighborhoods that pay less, that value product and service and everything else less, and all they care about is price. So you've built this book of business and brand and everything with this customer service book that doesn't even make sense for where your business needs to be. And so you will never find a 7, 8, 9-figure home service entrepreneur that brags about being the cheap guy. It doesn't exist. And so I urge you guys, do this exercise in your own business. Model it. Most business owners just don't even do the math. Audit your business. Look at how many dollars you brought in last month, how much you collected, and how much was left in the bank account at the end of the month. If that number doesn't make you excited, you're too cheap. And it's the hardest mental exercise for a new business. And for any home service business, the exercise of having more people say no to you is probably one of the most mentally difficult things that you can do. But I can tell you with confidence, and I'm not just saying this for my health, I'm saying this because it has worked for me, and it continues to work for me, and has worked for a lot of business owners that I've talked to, networked with, and the guys that have gotten their businesses to 100 times the size I have. They all say the same thing. Most of you are focusing on revenue too much and not doing the math and focusing on profit. I would rather have you do $10,000 a month at 50 to 55% margins than do $15,000 a month at 20% margins or 25% margins. You might think that you're busier the other way because you're collecting more cash and your schedule's full. But the other thing that you can do when you're less busy because you're getting more profit per job is now you have more time as an owner to do revenue producing things. You can make better ads. You can focus more on marketing. You can take more dollars. Like if you're more profitable, you can take more than 10, 15% and put it back into advertising and scale it even harder. And so if you guys like this video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. I promise you, listen to what this video says. It's probably one of the more impactful videos I've ever made if you just sit down and do the math. And if you want to join the Home Service Accelerator, there's an application in the description and there's also one in the comments. It's where we bring in a ton of different home service businesses. We teach you how to run your own Facebook ads, set up ad campaigns for you and your team, record the video so you can go back and do it yourself any other time. We script all your creatives for you. We fix your Google business page SEO. We fix a bunch of automations and systems similar to the ones that I have in my business in your home service businesses. If you want to see if you're eligible for that, click the application link below, or feel free to subscribe to this channel, like, thumbs up this video, share it with a friend that also owns a home service business, and follow me on Instagram and X. I appreciate it. I love all of you that are watching these videos even for free. Keep watching it, but all I ask in return is give me a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and keep tuning in and let me know which type of these videos you like and which ones you don't like, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.